Welcome to another bar walkthrough video from SuperfastCPA. I'm Logan, and in today's video, we're going to be going over bar area 3. This is our first video for bar area 3. This is section A1, and this is a remembering and understanding topic. Identify and recall basic concepts and principles associated with government-wide financial statements, and that would include things like required activities, financial statements, financial statement components. And we're going to be doing that the Superfast CPA way, which is diving straight into the questions to learn the material. Now, if you don't know much about our strategies, make sure you go to superfastcpa.com and sign up for our free 1-hour webinar training. In that 1 hour, we will teach you the key ingredients to passing the CPA exam so you don't waste months or even years of your time failing exams. And after you watch that 1-hour webinar, you're going to want to learn more, so make sure you also check out becoming a Superfast CPA Pro member. Pro members get access to a lot of great stuff, including the Pro course, where Nate explains in depth exactly how you're supposed to pass the CPA exams. It's kind of like a much more in-depth version of the 1-hour webinar. And Pro members also get access to the full versions of these 5-question YouTube walkthrough videos. So in today's video, we're only going to be going over 5 questions. But again, Superfast CPA Pro members will get access to the full 10-question version of the video in the member forum so that they can get a little bit more help, a little bit more practice, and a little bit more understanding. So if you like this, make sure you check out becoming a Superfast CPA Pro member. Now with all that, let's dive straight into the questions. All right, here we are at question 1, and something I always like to point out when it's an option is you want to read the last sentence of a question first, because frequently that will give you context for what the question is about. And with these questions, it might not seem very useful, but think of doing this on exam day. You have no idea what you're going to be seeing on the exam, so reading that last sentence first will quickly give you an idea of what you're dealing with in that question out of the 100 topics that you could be dealing with. So it just helps you orient yourself more quickly. So that's why you want to do this, especially for test day. So let's go through that here. Which set of government-wide financial statements would provide this information? Let's go up to the top. An accounting student is studying government-wide reporting and wants to know where to find information about a government's assets, liabilities, revenues, expenses, and gains or losses for the entire government. Which set of government-wide financial statements would provide this information? So would it be the statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balances, and the statement of cash flows? Would it be the statement of activities and the statement of net position? Would it be the statement of activities and the statement of cash flows? Would it be the statement of net position and the statement of changes in fund balances? So out of these different options, which 2 statements are going to contain what the student wants to know and what the student wants to find out? Now, if you've seen this kind of thing before, that's great. If you already know the answer, if not, that's okay. We are going to use these questions to learn the material. So let's dive into the explanation together. All right, here we are at the answer B, statement of activities and statement of net position. So those are the 2 statements that we are going to be learning about in different parts of this video, and that's what we're learning in this question. So let's go through this. Government-wide financial reporting is presented using the accrual basis of accounting and focuses on the government as a whole. There are 2 basic government-wide financial statements. The statement of net position, which reports the government's overall assets, liabilities, and net position, which is basically equity, similar to a balance sheet. So remember, statement of net position is essentially a government-wide balance sheet. The statement of activities, which reports the government's revenues, expenses, and gains or losses, is similar to the income statement. So again, statement of activities, similar to an income statement, statement of net position, similar to a balance sheet. Together, these 2 statements provide a complete picture of the government's financial position and operational results. And again, these are the 2 government-wide financial statements that kind of give the full picture of what's happening or what has been happening in the government. Now with that, let's go to the next question. All right, here we are at question 2. And again, reading that last sentence first, even though sometimes it might not feel that necessary. Which of the following best describes how this statement is structured? Let's go up to the top. A student is reviewing the statement of net position in a city's government-wide financial statements. So statement of net position, we just talked about this in the first question. This one is kind of similar to the balance sheet. Let's go through the options. Option A, it distinguishes between governmental activities and business type activities, with debt reported according to the resources expected to repay it. Option B, it combines all governmental and proprietary funds in a single column showing total assets, liabilities, and net position. Option C, it presents only current assets and current liabilities of governmental funds reported using the modified accrual basis. Or option D, it focuses on budgetary compliance by comparing actual revenues and expenditures with the original and final budget. So out of these, which one is going to be how the statement of net position looks, what it presents? Now, if you read through this carefully, there's probably 1 or 2 answers that are clearly incorrect based on what we learned in the first question. So you can kind of easily narrow it down to 1 or 2 answers that are more likely to be correct. So think through this, give it a good guess, and when you're ready, come back. We'll look at the answer together. All right, here we are. The answer is A. It distinguishes between governmental activities and business type activities, with debt reported according to the resources expected to repay it. So that's kind of how it distinguishes between things. Let's go through this. The statement of net position, which remember is kind of similar to a balance sheet, provides a government-wide view of financial position on the accrual basis of accounting, and we learned about that it's on accrual basis in the first question. It is organized to show the governmental activities, which would include things like the general government, public safety, education, those kinds of activities. And then it would include things like the business type activities, which would be things like the utilities, the transit systems, the airports, the kind of things that they're providing to the citizens. Debt is reported in the column associated with the activities that will repay it. For example, bonds for water utilities appear under business type activities, while general obligation bonds appear under governmental activities. So we're kind of learning a little bit of how the statement of net position is set up and what it contains. Now let's go to the next question to learn a little bit more. All right, here we are at question 3. Which of the following would be classified as program revenues and how are they reported? Let's go up to the top. In the government's wide statement of activities, so now we're talking about the statement of activities similar to an income statement, revenues are separated into program revenues and general revenues. So again, which of the following would be classified as program revenues and how are they reported? Let's go through the options. Option A, property taxes, sales taxes, and unrestricted state aid would be reported by function or program. Option B, investment income, unrestricted grants, and interfund transfers, and they would be reported separately from each program. Option C, charges for services, operating grants and contributions, and capital grants and contributions, and they would be reported by function or program. And then option D, fines, forfeitures, and unrestricted taxes, reported in a single column apart from program functions. So again, which one of these is talking about program revenues, and how are they going to be reported if they are program revenues? If you have any idea, or if you want to give it a guess, that's great. Go ahead and pause the video, and when you're ready, come back. We'll look at the answer together. All right, here we are. The answer is C, charges for services, operating grants and contributions, and capital grants and contributions. So those are some of the more common program revenues, and they would be reported by function or program. So let's go through this. The statement of activities is designed to show the net cost of each governmental function or program. Revenues are split into program revenues, which directly relate to a specific function or program. These include, so these are the different kinds of program revenues: charges for services, operating grants and contributions, and capital grants and contributions. So let's talk about what it falls into each of those categories. Charges for services is licenses, permits, utility fees, things like that. Operating grants and contributions are restricted for support of a specific operation, and capital grants and contributions are restricted for support of capital projects. So again, these are the three areas that typically they are split into as program revenues. Now, you could also have general revenues, which are not directly tied to a function, such as property taxes, sales taxes, unrestricted grants. But I want you to remember the main thing that you want to know for program revenues when you're talking about the statement of activities is charges for services, operating grants and contributions, and capital grants and contributions. So charges for services, operating grants, capital grants. Those are the kind of things that you need to remember for program revenues. Program revenues are reported within the function or program they support, such as public safety, education, or utilities. This allows users to see the extent to which each program is self-financing versus relying on general revenues. So we learned a little bit about how things are set up in the statement of activities in that question. Now let's go to the next question. All right, here we are at question 4. Which measurement, focus, and basis of accounting are used in the government-wide financial statements? And again, those are the statement of net position and the statement of activities. We've been talking about those, and you should already know part of this. Let's go through the options. Option A, current financial resources focus and modified accrual basis. Option B, budgetary resources focus and modified accrual basis. Option C, current financial resources focus and cash basis. Or option D, economic resources focus and accrual basis. Now, if you've been paying attention through the questions, you should already know the answer, even though we haven't talked about this fully yet. So pause the video, think about this, and when you're ready, come back. We'll look at the answer together. All right, here we are at the answer D, economic resources focus and accrual basis. And again, if you've been paying attention, especially in question 1, you already know that they are based on the accrual basis. So since all the other answers had modified accrual basis or cash basis, you could have easily seen that D was the correct answer, even though you didn't know necessarily that it uses the economic resources focus. Let's go through the explanation. Government-wide financial statements, and again, that's the statement of net position and statement of activities, are prepared using the economic resources measurement focus and the accrual basis of accounting. This means they capture all assets, both current and non-current, all liabilities, including long-term debt, and recognize revenues and expenses when they are earned or incurred, regardless of cash flow timing. This is different from governmental fund statements, and we will talk about that in a future video, which use the current financial resources measurement focus and the modified accrual basis, focusing only on short-term inflows and outflows of spendable resources. So again, government-wide financial statements are much more similar to probably normal financial statements that you've dealt with before. Kind of a normal statement of net position, which is like the balance sheet, kind of a normal statement of activities, which is like an income statement. They're accounting for all the assets and the liabilities, and they are doing this on the accrual basis of accounting, just like GAAP does. Now with that, we learned a little bit more. Now let's go to the next question. All right, here we are at question 5. Which types of funds are used in the government-wide financial statements? So option A, is it governmental funds and proprietary funds, but not fiduciary funds? Is it only governmental funds? Is it governmental funds, proprietary funds, and fiduciary funds? Or is it only proprietary funds? Now, if you don't really remember what the funds are, like if you haven't gone through that in FAR yet, or if it's been a while, you might not remember what these are. If you have an idea, pause the video and think about it. If not, that's okay. We're going to learn a little bit about them right here. All right, here we are. The answer is A, governmental funds and proprietary funds, but not fiduciary funds. Let's go through this. Government-wide financial statements consolidate the activities of governmental funds, such as the General Fund, Special Revenues Fund, Capital Projects Fund, Debt Services Fund, and Permanent Funds, which, by the way, those are the governmental funds. And we're going to talk more deeply about those in a future video. But again, government-wide financial statements, they take into account the governmental funds, which is all those 5 funds, the general, special revenue, capital projects, debt service, and permanent funds. And they take into account the proprietary funds, which is the enterprise funds and the internal service funds. So they have 7 funds that they keep track of. These activities are presented as either governmental activities or business type activities. Now, fiduciary funds, such as pension trust funds, investment trust funds, private purpose trust funds, and custodial funds, are excluded from the government-wide financial statements because their resources are not available to support the government's programs. They are held in trust for others. So if anything is like a trust or a custodial thing, you probably know it's a fiduciary fund, and that's not going to be in the government-wide financial statements because that's not what they're trying to cover. They're trying to cover the governmental stuff and the business type stuff. They're not trying to cover what's being held for other people or for other businesses or for other entities. So with that, we learned a lot about government-wide financial statements and what they are and what is in them. Now, before we do anything else, let's do one more part of the SuperFast CPA process called Pillar Topics. Now, the idea behind Pillar Topics is as you're going through the questions to learn the material, you will notice the things that keep popping up in the questions. You've seen 2 or 3 or maybe even 4 questions trying to teach you about the different funds that are in the government-wide financial statements, or about what the statement of net position is, or whatever you see in the questions. Again, these are the things that are the most important because you've seen them multiple times. So you take a moment and you write them out as pillar topics or key points based on what you learned from the questions. And as you do this each day in your own words, you are building your own personal repository of what you need to know for the exam based on what you saw was most tested in the questions. So let's go ahead and take a look at the pillar topics for this video. All right, here we are at the pillar topics. Let's just dive straight in. First off, government-wide financial statements consist of the statement of net position and the statement of activities prepared on accrual basis. We went over that multiple times. The statement of net position reports assets, liabilities, and net position, which is basically equity, distinguishing between governmental and business type activities, with debt reported where repayment is expected. The statement of activities shows how program expenses are financed by program revenues, such as charges for services, operating grants, and capital grants, and by general revenues, such as taxes. So remember, again, the biggest thing you need to remember for the statement of activities, charges for services, operating grants, capital grants, you need to remember that. Government-wide financial statements use the economic resources measurement of focus and the accrual basis of accounting, unlike governmental fund statements, which use current financial resources and modified accrual. And again, we'll dive deeper into governmental fund statements in a future video. And then finally, governmental and proprietary funds are included in government-wide reporting, but fiduciary funds, which again we'll talk about later, are excluded since their resources are held for others. So again, those are the main things that we learned from the questions that we went over in this video. And again, those were the pillar topics. Now, that is the end of the YouTube version of this video. I hope this was helpful. If you liked this and you like our other videos, make sure to check out becoming a SuperFast CPA Pro member, because again, Pro members get access to the full versions of these videos. Again, we only went over 5 questions here, but SuperFast CPA Pro members will get an additional 5 questions, which I'm about to finish after this, so that they can get a little bit more help and a little bit more understanding. So make sure you check out becoming a Pro member. Now, the easiest way to learn about and become a SuperFast CPA Pro member is by going to superfastcpa.com and signing up for our free 1-hour webinar training. In that 1 hour, we will teach you the key ingredients to passing the CPA exam so you don't waste months or even years of your time failing exams. And after that, again, that will give you a better path to learning about and becoming a SuperFast CPA Pro member. So check out the webinar, check out becoming a Pro member. Now, if you did like this video, make sure to like it and leave a comment. Again, I hope this was helpful, and I will see you in the next video.